Well, welcome back, everybody. This is Pucks from the Pine Tree Pod. I'm your host, Benjamin Kennedy. Thank you for joining me here on this Tuesday evening. I hope everybody's having a great week out there. A lot of great hockey going on tonight. We got a whole full slate of games tonight in the NHL, so a lot of exciting stuff. So let's get right to it. We are going to take a look at the Washington Capitals tonight. Another one of these battleship kind of type teams as we get ready for the NHL playoffs. Just a few weeks away. Cannot wait for it. But let's take a quick peek at the Capital season to date. Of course, these stats, all the stats I have tonight, guys, are not going to include the Winnipeg game. That goes on at 8 o'clock. I'm currently at 6:30 Eastern time, so this will go on live, go on to the channel later tonight. But they will not include those Winnipeg numbers. 70 games so far played for Washington, 47, 15, and 8, 102 points, first in the Metro Division. Phenomenal. Their home and away splits are nearly identical at this point, 24, 7, and 6 at home, and 23, 8, and 2 on the road. They'll play you anytime, any place, anywhere. You got a pond someplace you want to go play them. You want to go play them in Russia, they'll probably go and play you any place and probably beat you. Over their last 10, they are finishing strong, guys. 9-1 in the past 10, and they are on a 4-game winning streak. Of course, they do have the game tonight against Winnipeg at 8 p.m. up there in Canada. Two of the best teams, the two best teams in the league. Potential Stanley Cup preview. Be curious, wouldn't it? Be a fun one. That would be a fun one. Stats and looking at both just kind of regular stats and looking at some of the advanced metrics, this is just a statistical darling of a team. If you were a stats nerd or you really crave analytics, there is nothing but good to like about this team. As I started to dive into it, it's like they're top 10 in just like so many categories. It's ridiculous. Part of why they're the best team in the East right now. But goals for, they are at 3.66, first in the league. Goals against a 2.54, third in the league. Power play about middle of the pack, 22%. PK, very strong, 82.8%. That's good for third. Face-off dot, again, kind of middle of the pack, 50.1%. Going into moneypuck.com and taking a look at some of these other numbers. High danger shots for, they're at 268. That's good for sixth. Against, they've given up 249, so good for 19th. So again, sort of middle of the pack on that one. Rebound goals against, the stat I've been kind of looking at, tied for 8th. So again, doing a good job for the goaltenders, clearing those pucks into good spaces from the rebounds. The D is doing a great job clearing those out. Goals for above expected. This is a fun one, 23.32. So what that means is they have scored over 23 more goals than expected based on statistical analysis. Goals against above expected, negative 36.64. So they're giving up 36 less than expected. That's good for second in the league. And their goals for above expected was good for first. So they're first and second in both of those categories. And of course, their goal differential above expected, 59.96, good for first. So you take a look at those numbers just based on all the analytics and kind of where they should be and what, the numbers that we're kind of projecting, they're way above it in all of those categories. Great to see that. Save percentage above expected on unblocked shots. So again, how good are your goaltenders doing? They're at a 1.24%. And the way that works out is number 1 in the league. Been a great goalie tandem so far. And then, of course, saves on unblocked shots. They're at 93.97%, good for second. Yeah, a couple of numbers within the middle of the pack, but it's hard to find anything wrong with any of those numbers. Like I said, they are just a statistical darling there on the ice. Top performers, center Dylan Strome, 70 games played for him, 23 goals, 45 assists for 68 points. Alexei Protas, 70 games played for him, 29, 34, and 63 line. Pierre-Luc Dubois, talk about him a little bit later, 18 goals, 43 assists for 61 points. The grade 8, Alex Ovechkin, 54 games played, of course, had the injury earlier this year, missed some time, but 35 goals, 24 assists for 59 points. And Tom Wilson, 30 goal a year for Tom here. 69 games played for him, 31 goals, 28 assists for 59 points. Having just a heck of a year for himself. Good to see that. One of maybe the more hated people, hated players in the league, but has that edge about him that you love him and you love to hate him. And yeah, yeah, I mean, I think he's good for the game. I know I haven't maybe always said that as he's been a little rough and tumble with some of my favorite players, but he's one of those guys where any roster, any organization would want to have them, want to have him on their team. So good to see him having such a great season. Goaltending, as we referenced, has been phenomenal this year. Logan Thompson, 40 games for him, 31 4-5 record, 2.3 goals against average, and a 917 save percentage, two shutouts for himself. Charlie Lindgren, 31 games for him, 16 11-3, 2.63 and a 901 save percentage, one shutout for him. So, that Thompson trade really working out for them. They pulled him from Vegas, and it's just been a phenomenal tandem all year. One of the best in the league. Looking back at my summertime predictions, I'm going to give myself a tiny pat on the back, just a little tiny one. I did feel I was higher on this team than most. But let's just read through some of the excerpts of what I had to say this summer. Their run to the playoffs last year was slightly unlikely, but regardless of the numbers, they got in. And now, look at this roster. I feel they have improved by a solid margin. Quite honestly, I really like all of their additions. They added a good mix of veteran forwards and defensemen, as we just highlighted. I highlighted it in that video. The addition of Logan Thompson and net gives them a very solid goalie tandem. So much of the narrative coming out of last year was, oh, well, they were lucky to sneak in. Detroit and Philly caved, and maybe Washington really didn't deserve it. OVI's lost a step, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those were all the kind of narrative points when we were looking at the playoffs a year ago. As any Washington fan will remember, um, this team should be deeper and tougher to play against this coming year, and I'm feeling confident they will be right around that wild card conversation. That's why my tap on my shoulder wasn't a huge one, just a little bit of tap on the shoulder, a little pat on the back. Maybe even third in the Metro, I say. It's hard for me to look at a playoff team from a year ago that also improved their roster and suggest they can't make the playoffs this year. That would not be a logical statement. I'll be making my official picks here in a couple weeks, but I'm leaning towards 5 from the Atlantic and 3 from the Metro for the Eastern Conference. If I have Washington in, who will I have missing the playoffs out of that Metro division? It's kind of how I wrap that up. So yeah, I definitely had them as a playoff team. I think I had projected them third, so they are definitely, exceeding my expectations for sure. Just one heck of a regular season so far. Going back to that trade deadline, they did pick up Anthony Beauvillier from Pittsburgh. That was for a second round draft pick, kind of a sneaky, nice move for them. And 7 games for him. He's been quite solid. He's really fit in well. 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points. So, yeah, just one of those trades that kind of flew under the radar a little bit. But as we'll talk about, it seems like everything Washington has done lately has just turned to gold. Speaking of turning to gold, let's revisit the PLD trade from a year ago, PR from this past summer. So far, looking at what Dubois has done here in Washington and how Darcy Kempfer's playing in LA, it's just worked out for both clubs, right? It's been a good trade for both clubs. I didn't like the trade uh, really for LA. Just I understood them moving on from PLD and that contract, but I've never been really high on Kemper, and I was concerned about LA's goaltending and him going over and being part of that. But it's worked out for them. It's worked out for the Capitals, right? Um, just looking at his numbers, and listen, he's 3 points away right now, meaning PLD, from having the most points in a season of his career. So it's really hard to argue with how it's working out. Yeah, it's a pretty penny in terms of his salary, but he's fit in. It seems again seamless in the lineup, and yeah, good on him and good on the Capitals for recognizing an opportunity. Let's talk about Ovi, right? Hard not to talk about Alex Ovechkin. 888 goals in his career, getting ever so close to that 894 mark. 6 to tie or 7 to pass with 12 games to go. I know that they play up in Boston, I think April 1st. Um, can he, break the record in Boston? I think it would be a highlight for the Boston Bruins this year for as bad of a year as it's been. If we could have that moment happen at the Garden, that'd be pretty cool. Not sure if it'll happen there, but can he pull it off this year? What do you guys think at this point? 12 games left. He may need to have a couple multi-goal games. You do have Buffalo coming up on that schedule, and listen, Boston is folding right now, so they're kind of an easy team to score on. See their last game in LA. Um, you know, I think he probably could. I think he probably. I'm cheering for it. It would suck to get if he's like one or two short and have to wait all summer for that moment. It'd be great if it happened here at the end of the year. A little bit more about Ovi though. I'm a bit tired of the narrative um, about how all the empty net goals have kind of cheapened his run here to this record. I just think that whole narrative is just overblown, completely overblown in my book. Why is the net empty so often? Why don't we ask ourselves that question first? Why is the net empty all the time late in Washington games? Maybe it's because they're a really good team. Maybe it's because they've worked hard to get a lead going into those last couple minutes of the game. And I don't know, maybe Ovi's part of that really good team that's working really hard. So listen, they count. I don't think it cheapens it at all. Again, I just look at the work that they've done to get there. You take those empty netters, take them all day. I don't think history is going to remember that. And, I just really hope that the narrative can just kind of shut down. It's just mostly haters, I think, mostly OV haters. Um, just overall, though, I do think that we've struggled to appreciate greatness in certain players while they're here and active, in their respective sport. I hope fans can simply watch this chase and just appreciate what we're witnessing, what we're enjoying here. This was, a record that was never meant to be broken. I mean, there's so many guys in the AHL that nobody's ever going to touch that record. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is Gretzky's assist record. How nobody's ever going to touch that. That one's huge. But this is surprising. I think for a lot of NHL people, they did not think that this record would ever get touched. And here we are. It's just incredible what Obi's done. It shows you, I mean, look at where he is in his career, how many great years he's had. It takes that kind of health, that kind of consistency to do it. And you've just seen it for so long. And again, you get a little comfortable with it. I go back to I am a Patriots fan, and all the years with Tom Brady, um, and you just kind of get used to the winning, right? You just kind of home, kind of go through the motions, and seeing that greatness every day. And I think with Obi, it's a little bit of that, where we've kind of become a little numb to it because we've been so lucky to have him, having Sidney Crosby there in Pittsburgh, and of course all the other great players we have today in the league. It's a really great time to be an NHL hockey fan. We're just witness to so many great players, and Ovi certainly very much top of that list. Let's just enjoy this. Let's not nitpick, over empty net goals. Let's not cheapen this down. Let's enjoy it for what it is. It's historic. It's, he's going to set a new number. He'll be, I would imagine, well over 900 if he has another, 40, 45 goal, 50 goal year next year, let's say. Could he hit 1,000? Is he going to play long enough to hit 1,000? What a crazy number that would be. I'm not sure if he plays that long, but, what would that take him? Another 3 years, 2.5, 3 years perhaps. So that'd be pretty cool. But I just, again, hope that we can all simply enjoy this for what it is. I'm looking at Washington. Of course, I've had the great privilege of going to a lot of ECHL games here in Portland, Maine this year. So fairly well tied to the minor league systems. And I always like to look at NHL clubs and how they manage that, how they manage those relationships at the American League level and at the ECHL level. And Washington just has it figured out, man. They just have it figured out. They've got a great team on ice at the NHL level. The AHL Hershey Bears right now, 38, 16, 6-1, 83 points. They've already clinched a playoff spot. Of course, Calder Cup champion multiple times here recently. And the ECHL South Carolina Stingrays are 46, 14, 2, 3-2, 97 points. Of course, have also clinched a playoff spot for themselves. This is how you build an organization from the top, or from the bottom up, basically. Top down, bottom up, however you do it. This is how you do it. Of course, South Carolina did come here to Maine this year. had a series against them, and they just completely smoked the Mariners. I mean, it wasn't close. I think they had talking about the Stingrays. I think they had 12 AHL contracts, and Maine maybe had two or three. So I mean, no excuses there, but it just showed you the level of talent in the organization, just at every level. While again having a very talented NHL roster. Yeah, you might be one of the older NHL rosters, but you have enough youth up there right now and enough youth developing at both levels. This just to me is a model for team building. And I think that's what most NHL teams should be aspiring to do. But listen, we know how many teams like look at the Bruins, look at what Vegas is doing right now with their draft picks, train them off, going all in for it. Washington has done a great job of acquiring talent, developing talent, and of course, your coach Carbery having worked through. I think he was in South Carolina at one point as an ECHL coach. Um, yeah, it's been great to see, and again, a model for other NHL teams to follow in my book. We do have some news today, of course, from Washington. Jakob Chychrun re-signed today. Something that we all knew had been worked on. They were hoping to get something done, and they do 8-year contract, 72 million. That's a $9 million AAV. Um, Big number, yes. Having his best statistical season of his career, 18 goals, 25 assists for 43 points, is a plus 24, and it's just working. He's only 26 years old. But yeah, for you Washington fans, how are you feeling today about this contract? Are you excited? Are you relieved that it's done? Is it a little bit of an overpay, perhaps? Or, of course, with the salary cap going up, is this just kind of a non-issue right now? For me, I've never been a huge Chychrun guy, and it's not because I don't recognize the talent. He's very talented. I always just worried about the injuries. Always worried about the injuries and the fact that it's not all his fault. Like the teams he's played on, like he's never really played on a lot of really good teams, and of course now here he is, but in a really good situation and having the best year of his career. And again, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx anything, healthy. And that's the biggest thing. He's been able to get into a system that really works, that can kind of take advantage of his offensive ability. Um, so yeah, it's just again, it's Washington trades for him, it turns to gold, right? So you hope that contract ages well. Again, I think with the salary cap moving up, he's not going to give you probably 20 goals every year like he made this year, but um, I just think he's fit in seamlessly, and if he can be a 40-point, 45-point guy and play good defense in that system, yeah, pretty good. But I mean, what does this number now mean for the Makars of the world, for the Hughes of the world? I know McAvoy is already signed, but guys like that are maybe better defensively, maybe higher up that list than a Jacob Chychrun. If Chychrun's making 9, what's McCarr worth? What's Hughes worth? Like, you're going to see some crazy numbers out there as these contracts come up. What about the kid up in Montreal, Hudson? Lane Hudson. What is he going to be worth? In a couple of years. If I'm Montreal, I may try to go get that done now, lock him in, because man, if Chicken is getting 9, oh, I don't want to pay that. I don't want to pay that number, whatever it's going to be. But yeah, overall, I think it's good business done for Washington, and they can move on, put it behind them, and know that they got them locked in and get back to the games. Right. Looking at the books right now in Vegas, looking at Bet 365, they've got Washington at a plus 850 to win the cup. DraftKings are at a plus 1100, FanDuel plus 1100. So, again, one of the favorites. Um, I'm not a betting person, but if you are, go check those out. Um, what would potentially stop this team right now from winning the cup? A couple things there's not a lot to really talk about here. I mean, they are 9-1 over their past 10. Are they peaking a little bit too early? Are they doing kind of the Boston Bruins thing from a couple years ago where they just kind of ran away with things, kind of ran away and hid? Are they peaking too early? Are they going to lose that juice as you get to that first round? Um, what about the age of the roster? They are one of the older rosters in the league, not the oldest, but one of the oldest. Could that be a concern moving forward? I don't I don't really think so in either one of those. I don't really worry about them peaking right now. I think there's still plenty to play for. And I think you just have a lot of motivated people, guys who probably have a little chip on their shoulder. I look at PLD, probably a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I look at a Chychrun who's been traded a couple times, chip on the shoulder. Probably Ovi a little bit. It's been a few years since he won one. I think a lot of people wrote him off, getting too old. Probably a little chip on him. Look at your goaltenders, probably chips on their shoulders as well. Like I think there's enough motivation in that room to keep it going. I think your coach Carbery is just gonna, keep them focused and keep them going. So I really don't worry about either one of those things. For you Washington fans, as you watch a lot more Washington games than I do, what do you think are some things that could trip this team up, in your opinion? Leave those comments down below. Looking at the records against other potential Eastern Conference playoff teams for your Capitals, they are 1-1 so far against Carolina, 2-2. Already get those games done against New Jersey. 1-0 against the Islanders, so a couple more games to go with them. Florida 3-0, pretty impressive there. 2-0-1 against Toronto, 1-2 against Tampa. That's a 2-0-1 for Ottawa, 2-0-1 against Montreal in the playoff mix. Love it. Even as a Bruins fan, I love it. It's just cool to see them up there. And the New York Rangers 3-0. That brings you to a total of 17-5-3. Impressive. Just impressive. I mean, there's not many trouble spots up there. 3-0 against Florida's might be a team you face in the Eastern Final. That's a pretty good number. So, I mean, here in the East, and speaking of Florida, I really do think it's Washington and Florida. I think they're the best two teams in the East by far, in my opinion. I know Carolina, Toronto, Tampa fans may not like hearing that. They may have something to say about that, but I do think these are the two most likely teams to come out of the East and play for that right to go to the Stanley Cup Final. Everything Washington has touched recently has just turned to gold, right? From hiring Carbery to all the various trades that you've made to Ovi, looking, 5 years younger on the ice, to your goaltending tandem. It's simply all working. At this point, from looking at their team stats and rankings to looking at their lines up and down, it's really hard to find many trouble spots here, guys. I don't think this team will beat themselves. I think that's the first point. I don't think you're going to see them choke anything away here, a la Boston 2 years ago, where they absolutely choked it away. If they don't happen to win the East, if they don't happen to win the Stanley Cup, I think it'll simply be due to just being outplayed by another really, really good team, right? Um, so while I predicted them to be a playoff team, I can say they've, as I said earlier, they've outperformed my expectations. And listen, I would have zero problems seeing Ovi hoist another cup. I think that would be quite a way to literally cap off his legacy. Not just getting the Gretzky record, but having two cups to his name would be quite amazing. Quite a resume. Should be a lot of fun. As I said a couple videos ago, I cannot wait for the playoffs. I'm itching for it. I'm so excited because I think there's a bunch of different teams that can win. I think you're going to see some amazing first round matchups, and you got to maybe see teams like Ottawa, Montreal get in that haven't been in for a little while, especially in Ottawa's case. Um, and still a lot to be decided out west as well. So anyways, that's what we have for you all tonight. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. If you do like what you're hearing, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button down below. Do appreciate that. And until next time, everybody, be kind, show love, and God bless.